Hello and welcome to the Story Engine podcast. My name is Kyle Gray, and today on the show we have Lia Dunlap. Lia is the creator of the Limitless Life Club, and she helps all kinds of leaders, particularly women, envision and embrace a life that is limitless, which means really being able to set goals that are in alignment with their true vision of what they want, not what the outside world is projecting on them, and having a wide, enjoyable path to do so. We're going to explore exactly what that means and create a brand new story for Lia to express the unique value that is the Limitless Life Club. So without any further ado, let's hand it over to Lia Dunlap. Lia Dunlap, welcome to the Story Engine podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Kyle. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you. It was such a pleasure getting to meet you on the New Media Cruise a few months back, and I've been looking forward to diving deeper with you on the show. But before we get into the real magic that is you, could you introduce yourself by telling us a little bit about who you are and how you're showing up in the world today?
Yes, absolutely. So I am known as the Oracle on Purpose. I have been an intuitive business architect for the last 30 years. I have spent my life creating opportunities for people to transform their lives through my books. I travel over the world. I do international retreats. I work with people one-on-one. And primarily what I do is really help them to find the clarity and the confidence and a sense of purpose so that they can actually find a really wide and clear path towards prosperity and a limitless life.
When you say, I think I've heard clear path a lot of times, but wide path is kind of interesting. And I think that was a very intentional choice of words. What does that mean to you, a wide path?
Well, I think part of the challenges people have when they think of like coming up with a purpose or their big why, they get stuck thinking they have to like narrow it so far down that they feel restricted. And to me, having like really leaned into the idea of like, I can have whatever I want and the possibilities being really broad in life, that the idea of the path isn't about being narrow, but about being focused and direct. Like you're going towards a goal, and that goal is also that clarion call within you that takes you one step to the next. So it's not so much about the path being really narrow. It's about being broad and being able to explore your life with this anchor stone and this knowing alignment to who you are and why you're here.
How I relate to that as a high achiever, and there's lots of high achievers on this show, and listening to this show, is a lot of times I have a neurotic part of me that's like, I picture myself on the opposite of a wide path, on the edge of a knife. And if I make one mistake, or if I take an extra day off, or if I do this one thing, or like if I don't get this perfectly right, this house of cards is going to collapse.
Absolutely.
I've done a lot of work in this, but it's amazing how influential this can be in my life. I would wake up in the morning feeling like this and not thinking, what should I do this morning that will lift me up? Or like, how do I create an alignment with my vision? But it's like, I need to get this right. And the totally different strategies and tactics emerge from a mind that thinks like that versus experiencing the wide path that you are describing.
Right. And I think that that's a lot of the people that I've worked with over the years, especially the women founders and entrepreneurs that I work with. That is a very big part of the opportunity. I don't even want to call it a challenge. It's an opportunity because I don't even call myself a recovering type A person. I'm still very type A. And so this gives me the space to breathe into possibility and also creation and creativity, is having that reframe to the idea that there is a difference between being focused and, as you said, being, perilously on the edge of the knife, and feeling like any moment you misstep is perilous and even perhaps, ruinous. And I feel like that kind of energy isn't very creative. It can be very stressful and allows people to feel like they just don't want to try to be big and as big as they can possibly be because that's just too big of a risk.
Yeah. This is a slightly different flavor or experience that you've just articulated. And again, something that is really meaningful to me There have been many times in my life where I don't try with my full heart, or I don't swing as hard as I could. And it's a protection mechanism in a way. I can keep myself safe. If I really gave it my all and then failed, then that would really make a meaning of me that I wouldn't
Yeah.
appreciate. And so it's better to just do 70% or but in and like if I fail then it's okay. And oftentimes that certainly increases the chances of failure, or it really decreases the chances of doing this. And I also find that I put off things that I want in my life because of it, where it's not simply like I'm not working as hard in my business or I'm not working as hard on myself. And maybe when I have more money, I'll go to the gym more, or I'll start playing my guitar more, or I'll take that vacation that I've wanted to take instead of doing another thing. Is this the experience you're talking?
Yeah, definitely to some degree. And a good example, I just, was speaking with a client today and we're working on her goals. And one of them was to have $750,000 a year. And then as we were talking it through, and I'm, of course, as as an intuitive, I'm always scanning my clients on a multitude of levels. And every time she said it, it was just hitting wrong. It was like something is not right with what you're saying. And so we dug a little deeper. And she said, it even feels better really to just say $1,000,000. And I'm like, do you hear it? Do you see how it changed in you? But it is that couching of what she desired versus what she felt or believed that she could figure out how to achieve. And to your point, it's like, okay, I know kind of I can see the path to 750. It doesn't really excite me as much as 1,000,000, but I know, as you were just kind of saying, like I could find a path, I could find the way. And so part of this wider path is to say, but what if you don't know? And there's even something more. And part of what you're also saying, I think, and what I reflect with my clients a lot about is what makes the unknown dangerous? What makes you think just because you don't know what the difference is between that gap of 750,000 to 1,000,000 annual revenue, that somehow the difference of the unknown portion and the unknown quotient is scary or negative or bad? What if it's better than you could even imagine? You just don't know it yet. And so it's a bit of like leaning into that unknown piece too, that you don't have to have all the answers to take the next step. And sometimes it's even better if you don't, because then you're not, as you just said, always couching it and trying to play it safe.
In my experience, the unknown is essential. If it is a goal that you understand how to do it, then it's not a very good goal. And as somebody who's like intuitive, activating your own like deeper internal powers, it's so much better to have a goal that will also like activate our imaginations and stretch ourselves, and to do something that you don't have the answers of how it's going to work yet. There's a very specific moment in my life. I've had many of these, but the one of this that resonates the most, I was in college. I'd spent some time in South America, in Chile and Argentina, so I was good at speaking Spanish. But I heard about this internship in Brazil working for an airline. And I wanted to go to Brazil, and I wanted to figure out how to do it. And I remember with the most audacity walking into the internship office, and I said, I want to go to Brazil. And the advisor said, do you speak Portuguese? And I said, no, but I will by the time I get there. And
Perfect.
totally outrageous thing. She laughed at me. But I felt it. And I wasn't, it was audacious, but it wasn't stupid. I knew what this would take. I knew it was not easy. And I like could see it through. And I think claiming things with that level of confidence, it's something I yearn for. And I think this is something you like help people do, because when I can tap into that spirit, which only there's like precious handful few moments of this, and maybe with hanging out more with people like you, it can
I'm
be
like,
more common. But
well, exactly. I was just going to say, that's exactly it in our group. That's the norm now. And it's funny because people in our group will come back. We have weekly check-ins, and they'll come back and they'll be like, I can't tell people, like, I can't go outside of this group and tell someone I'm going to go do X and have them respond the same way it would be responded to in this group. And that's because, as you're pointing out, it's not typical. I don't want to say it's not normal. It's not typical, and yet it's not practiced. And so the more we practice being in that state, in that space of mind, the more normalized it is to think in a land of possibility that the desire is enough of a reason to try.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's strong enough in you and it's really aligned with who you are and what again, we always anchor everything that I do with a sense of what your purpose is here, then it's always great to try. And it's usually, even when it quote unquote doesn't work, it always works out. There's always something on the other side of that thing that you thought you were going to get, maybe it didn't work out the way you thought, but something better was drawing you that direction. And therefore you got what you really truly could take advantage of just because you said yes and you took that leap of faith.
Mm-hmm. So I want to know a little bit more about the people that you work with or the challenges that they're facing. We've gotten a couple of really good ones. The narrow path is stressful. And if I make one mistake, we're putting a lot of pressure on ourselves. We're afraid to claim our full greatness or afraid to really step into the unknown. And so we're trying to keep ourselves safe. What's another problem or experience or challenge that you see in the people that you work with?
Another big piece of the challenge that a lot of clients come to me with is when we talk about clarity, we have to define what their desires are from external resourced ideas of what success is. So it's oftentimes like, for example, the $750,000. The one woman was asking, I like, that's a number, like you hear this, or even the $1 million. Like somebody's like, I want to make 7 figures. And my first challenge to people when they ask me that, or they say that, put that on the table as one thing that they want to work on, is not okay, not yes, not what are you making now. I always ask why. Like, what does that mean? What does that represent to you? Because if it just means that externally you see other people making that, calling that success, and then that means if you have it, you are successful, that is not a good enough reason to go for $1 million or more. It really has to be true to who you are as a being, that's exciting for you. Otherwise, you'll create your own level of people talk about self-sabotage. You'll create your own level of self-sabotage just to avoid not getting the thing you didn't want in the first place. So I'd much rather you said, for example, 500,000. We'll get there and then we get another 500,000. That's fine. But the reality of it is that oftentimes we have to clear out external noise of what a typical version of success looks like so that they can find their own true measure of success.
Do you think sometimes we create our own level of self-sabotage that's necessary to become the person that's worthy of what we want?
I think worthiness is a big piece of what I help people understand, is like you were born worthy. We're all born worthy. I don't believe, and I have been doing this work for 30 years now, I don't believe that I've ever met anyone who isn't worthy of having what they desire.
Maybe instead of worthiness, has the capacity. We will sabotage ourselves and create problems that will show us where we are out of integrity and point us to what is necessary to become that person. But a lot of times what appears to be the failure in the short term is the catalyst for growth.
Right. I think sometimes that I think it's a catalyst, but I also think it is often what I like to call it's the spotlight, right? On the edge that needs to be tended. I don't want to say ground, but there's a rough spot. There's a space for growth, or there's a space for us to step up or more fully into ourselves. And I think oftentimes when we find ourselves kind of banging our head against the wall in a way, it's just, again, I just continually go back to, it's like opportunity for bigger possibility, because we've been looking at something through an old or cracked or misaligned edge, and that vision that we've had isn't fully realized. And so we are being guided back to just make the recalibration. And sometimes, it's not so fun, in the moment. And yet, yeah, it allows us to grow bigger and more expansively as people.
Beautiful. So there's a couple of elements that you've shared, which is what's unique about you or how you help people get to where you're going. You're highly intuitive, which I love, and I think a lot of people do. But to me, that means like I'm a very smart person, and I am great at tricking myself and deceiving myself. And I have so many layers of stories, kind of like what we were saying of like the external expectations or my misaligned things. And we need somebody who's intuitive that can see through the 5 or 6 layers of sediment that we have built up to get to the truth. And that helps me get there faster and easier. It's nice to have that. I think another thing that you mentioned is there's a community of respect and challenge and allowing for the cultivation of what seems impossible, audacious, or might even offend the muggles out there
Yes,
that are
definitely.
hearing us speak. What else is unique about your process that you would like to highlight?
It's actually the opposite side of the table, which is I'm also very strategic, and I have the ability to really help people craft the systems and the strategies to take all of this wonderful inspiration and put it into action. Because I don't believe any of this matters if we're not actually co-creatively working with source or spirit or whatever you want to call it. That we need to, kind of roll up our sleeves and take actual practical steps to make things happen in our lives. We can't just sit back and wait, which is oftentimes when people talk about manifestation, which is part of what I talk about and do, base my first book on, was like, this isn't just about that. It's that plus, it's that end, right? It's the extra boost is actually learning to take that alignment and those action steps and put them together. And so I really pride myself in having those kind of tougher conversations with people who are on the other side of the spectrum. We're just like, I'm just going to sit and meditate and believe, and all those things are wonderful. And I totally agree with them. And get up and move your feet, do something about it. And when you do that, what you're doing is activating the other part. Like there is the body, mind, and spirit. So your body, your physicality is part of the process. Get up and do something about it.
Beautiful. Lia, I'd love to hear about a time where you were on the narrow path, the knife's edge of making one mistake and it will all fall apart, to the stressful, constant reaching and anxiety of not being able to tell your voice from the voice of external expectations. A time where you were afraid to claim your own full greatness, and maybe your own moment of self-sabotage that spotlighted the edge that needs to be tended. I'm sure you have many, but as do I, and as do all of us.
Yeah.
But if there was a specific one, a time and place that comes to mind, what would that be?
I think there's 2 that come to mind, but I think I'm leaning towards speaking to the one that I don't speak about often, and I think it is a very important story in my journey, which is the time that my husband and I lost our home. And it came to a crescendo when I had stepped out of working in the corporate world at the time, tried to put up, my own business, and continued to try is a very important piece of this, and try to make it all work. Just starting out from nothing, from scratch, basically, with an idea that I would be running a company for event planning and coordination, because I had helped volunteer and everybody loved it. And they said, hey, come back and we'll hire you to do it the next year. And it was at the Ashland Independent Film Festival. And so I was like, oh, I've got this great job. I really love doing it as a volunteer. Maybe I should really do this. And I went from working in banking and in lending, of all things, to walking away from that, going off to do my own business. And then that was when the recession had hit in, just after 9/11. And I couldn't make the same amount of money I was making. And it didn't feel as easy as everything I had created up to that point using my own process. So I felt like there was a sense that I had to make it work because this is what I do. And I couldn't figure it out. And I couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. Even, the harder I worked, the more hours I put in, talking to people, trying to get people to say yes to have me do their events. the money just wasn't coming. And my husband and I had another business, and during that time, that business started to fail, and it was like everything is falling apart. What do I need to do? And really, it didn't change until I let it all go. I mean, we literally just had to stop trying to put together what was broken beyond repair. And the idea that I had for the business wasn't the right one. The economy was the economy, and my husband had a business in a mall shop, and things were dwindling there. And ultimately, of course, lovely hindsight being what it is, we were not meant to be in that location. Physicality, like that was not our home. We are not meant to stay there. And we already knew that, right? We'd already talked about it. Like, we don't want to stay here forever. So we had kind of designed, like you were saying earlier, like we had kind of sabotaged ourselves with these thoughts and ideas, and it all came to a crumble. And being on the knife's edge moment was just letting it go, just saying it was okay to fail this horrifically, like on all these levels. And I remember when I just kind of was in my office that one time, and I was like, I got nothing left. I have nothing, no other ideas. I have no other ways. And weirdly enough, of course it's perfect, but I had somebody I used to work with reach out and say, hey, I've got a job in Vancouver, Washington. And I was in Southern Oregon. And I would like you to come up and interview for it. And of course, like we had nothing, like I said, and I was like, I'm going to go. I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to just stop trying to make it work here. And sure enough, it was one of the best decisions we'd ever made. Got us to live in Portland, where we're still now, and turned our whole lives around. Everything changed. That was the projection. That was kind of the catalyst to get us into an entirely different stratosphere with our lives and our businesses.
How did you find out that you were losing this house?
At the time, we had we just we're late. We're farther and farther behind, and I remember that we even tried to rent it. Like, I tried to keep it, and then we actually just had to let it go, because they were, at that time there was a lot of foreclosures happening, and they were like, well, we're not going to work with you anymore. And that was when I was like, okay, well.
Who said we're not going to work with you anymore?
The bank.
Where did this conversation happen? Were you at the bank and they said we're not going to work with you anymore?
No, on the phone.
Okay.
Yeah, there were a lot of phone calls and like emails and mailings that were coming, and I remember I was on the phone
in your office,
in my office at home. Yeah. And they were saying, yeah, well, we just, I was like, I need like another week, and I can give you this, and I can give. They said, no, we're gonna. It's too late.
Describe your office.
It was a bedroom in our house. We had a 3-bedroom house, and I remember my husband and I had back to back desks that we had made. And so I was sitting in there. It was just a standard, 10 by 12 room that we had turned into an office. And I was there by myself the day that I was, going through the paperwork and calling and trying to figure out what to do.
Okay. And this was also, we let it all go, and someone reached out. Okay. Did I design this? I love it. Okay. Perfect. And we set out.
And just to be clear, when they said that, we actually ended up short selling our house, which is different than a full foreclosure, because we were trying to rent it, and they wouldn't let us rent it if we were leaving and all of these things. And so that was our final move, was like, okay, well, we're just going to have to short sell it then, because we can't rent it to pay the mortgage. You won't allow me to extend anymore. And then I had this opportunity show up, and it was like, okay, maybe this is a sign.
Great. Perfectly done. Now a moment of the opposite frequency, an experience of the wide path, an easy, adaptable path that you were enjoying along the way, a moment of both claiming your full greatness, or maybe recognizing the full greatness that you have claimed, having a clear voice and inner guidance that allowed you to navigate any challenge, and feeling activated in your mind, body, and spirit. I can't believe this is real.
I would say our current, literally the opposite of that, was when we moved into the house we're in now. In the interim, we had bought another house, but we knew it was just a temporary thing. And so the day that we stepped into this house, it checked all of the boxes, and I saw it everything like fall into place as far as it was, an extra 1,000 feet bigger than our old house. It had a huge yard. It had amazing windows and fireplaces and all these little moments, but it was walking onto the back deck and seeing the yard and seeing the ability to have the life we wanted in a space that made me feel like we did it. We had completely turned that chapter around and more. And everywhere I looked, I could see how we could actually, to your point that you just made, like we were thinking, oh man, there was so much in this space that allowed us to do so much more of what we wanted to do with our businesses and with our own lives. I lead retreats here now. My husband has his business and he trains here now. And all of that happened because we chose this space. But it was that moment when we stood on the deck and we looked around at the house and the space and just knew it was like there was something sacred about landing there. Like this was yeah, interesting. I was gonna say this was a moment where I feel like we put everything else to bed. Like, okay, that's it. That was then. This is now. Yeah.
What's a detail of the yard or the deck or something that I can picture in my mind?
Yeah, so we have a beautiful back deck that you walk out of some glass wall basically out to the deck, and there is a 85-year-old weeping cypress, and it makes the whole garden behind it. You have to kind of duck underneath it to go down to the next two layers of our yard. So it has a very secret garden feel, and it kind of pulls you down deeper into the yard. It's just a little, but almost a half acre of land back there. You just kind of travel down the steps into.
Beautiful. Would you like to hear your story?
Yes, please.
We're not going to work with you anymore. I remember hearing on the other end of the line, after trying everything in my power to hold on to this home. I'm in my office, back to back, where my husband had set up his desk, and we had set up visions for living a new life, for changing things. I had left behind the corporate world to create freedom for me and my husband, possibilities. And I feel so foolish because here I am leaving behind the safety and security of this job. I'm late on payments. We can't figure out how to rent this. And despite asking for another week and more time, there was nothing there. And the irony is, I had come from the banking world and I had been on the other side of that phone so many times, and I just felt the coldness of this response. It was just another number, just another thing. And no matter how hard I worked, no matter how hard I tried, the farther and farther this all seemed to be. And I can remember in total exhaustion for the first time hanging up that phone and letting it all go and asking myself, did I design this? Did I put myself here? How did these choices, how did these intentions lead me to this moment? And then a tiny glimmer of hope and an opportunity. I got a call to reach out, another job in another town, another place, and I took it. We ended up short selling the house, and I had no idea what was really going to happen, but I knew that I needed something better. And this dark moment was really the beginning of my creating of a limitless life. Setting out and leaving that home behind and leaving that security and what I thought I knew and what I thought I wanted, I began to tap into my own intuitive gifts for myself because I wanted somebody, and it had to be me at first, that could see through all of the layers of competing expectations that I had with myself of what it meant to be a woman, of what it meant to be working and earning in the corporate world and then in an entrepreneurial way on my own. And I wanted to find a community of people that would respect the expansiveness, the vision that I had, the future that I knew what was possible. And while I wanted intuitive power and a community that uplifted me, I also wanted practical, clear strategies and systems to take the inspiration that I felt and to put it into action. Friends, this would take many, many years and a lot of costly and painful mistakes. But where it began of stepping out of one house years later, stepping into a new house and recognizing with my husband that our lives had totally transformed. We had been visualizing and picturing someplace new that would check all of the boxes. A nice fireplace, lots of space for hosting retreats, lots of room for our own offices. And I can remember opening up the sliding glass door for the first time and stepping out into the deck and seeing a weeping cypress, going through and ducking underneath and seeing this secret garden and realizing that anything was possible, and feeling so grateful for stepping out into a journey that I didn't know exactly how it was going to end or how I was going to do it all, but having the faith in myself and in everything else to get me there. Now, for me, this began in a home, and it began with a moment which seemed like losing everything, but it helped me tune into myself in ways that I never thought possible. And I know so many of you out there are facing the same things and want to find a place to tap into who you are and explore and express and share that. And today I'm going to show you exactly why the Limitless Life Club is exactly the place for you to do that.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you so much, Kyle.
Absolutely. You said you haven't shared stories like that before. Have you done anything like that from stages or podcasts or webinars?
No, I don't really talk about that house piece. Yeah, so it's interesting that it kind of popped up. I often talk about another time later on, but this was a really pivotal place. I think it's really good to hear it reflected back that way. Yeah, makes me
Amazing.
actually feel really good. I'm like, oh, that's right. It's something that we, I think that's a beautiful thing. Like some of our stories we think are shameful or failures or what have you, but reality is that it's not always the case.
That's actually one of the most magical secret things about what I do is a story like this, when expressed differently, of course, can help you make more money and connect with clients. But simply by articulating it differently, you relate to it differently, and then you make different choices. And I've seen that played out. And of course, somebody like you would notice that right away, but I feel seen in you seeing that.
Yeah, no, that's a really great talent for sure. I appreciate that.
Amazing. Well, Lia, it has been so fun exploring and showcasing your talents with us today. And do you have any closing thoughts for us? And where can we go to learn more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think if you're at all, first of all, I just want to say if you're at all inspired by what Kyle has just been able to do with this story, I think first of all, definitely please um, let this be my own testimony that this is a really powerful work. So thank you for sharing that with me. And I would also like to say that idea that you can have something happen in your life that feels like it's taken everything away from you can really be a catapult to doing what you truly are meant to do. And so I encourage you to find your own version of what a limitless life looks like and go for it. And if you need support, you can always find me at limitlesslife.org or oracleonpurpose.com.
Amazing. Lia Dunlap, thank you so much for sharing your brilliance with us today on the Story Engine podcast.